And Margaret Brennan joins us now from the White House. Margaret, we all watched this press conference yesterday and were sort of caught off guard by the casual nature in which the president threw out comments about some very serious issues. And one of them had to do with a signal maybe in a major shift in policy yesterday. I'm wondering, how are Israelis reacting to this? Not just the comments about the settlements, but just the overall reaction to the press conference.
Well, I have to say, diplomats that I speak to from all over the world are saying, honestly, behind closed doors, there is no real Trump foreign policy yet. The vision is as vague, as listless as the president sort of publicly described there. People walk away saying it looks like they're just throwing out ideas. They don't have an organizing principle yet, other than this general description of let's get to some kind of broader peace deal in the Middle East. But it sounds like Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, has the lead role and likely is more briefed on the details than the president was when he answered, as you described it, kind of casually, some of these really divisive, very important, very nuanced issues, one of the most long-standing conflicts there is. But by saying, I'm going to step back and basically taking America out of a role that it typically has, which is the world expects us to set the global agenda for foreign policy, is a shock to the system, whether it's in Israel or elsewhere. But as to the political optics of this warm relationship between Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, and President Trump, that was well received, because this was not the kind of reception that Benjamin Netanyahu received from the Obama administration, even though the military alliance had been strengthened and even though President Obama gave Israel the biggest military aid package that this country has ever given Israel. Their political differences were so sharp that really sort of soured at least the PR around the relationship, if not but didn't seem to interrupt the intelligence and military sharing between the two countries.
Margaret, the Middle East policy will obviously stay in the spotlight today when the president's picked to be U.S. ambassador to Israel. David Friedman faces his Senate confirmation hearing now. He's an interesting individual. On one hand, he's accused President Obama of blatant anti-Semitism, according to the New York Times. He dismissed the two-state solution. He likened certain liberal American Jewish groups to capos. Those are the folks who cooperated with the Nazis. On the other hand, he's helped integrate Arab and Druze volunteers in a medical services group, spent $42 million on a village in the Negev for Bedouins. So what more do we know about him?
Well, according to a letter that I obtained from those who are being asked to approve this nominee, remember David Friedman, the nominated ambassador to Israel, has to get confirmed by the Senate first. According to a letter I saw, 5 ambassadors, Republican, who have served under Republicans and who have served under Democrats, have said do not confirm David Friedman to be the ambassador to Israel because of those statements you just described, those very charged, emotional, ideological statements that they argue could harm America's national security because of it. Throwing out allegations that he couldn't substantiate in terms of some political figures, and then his own personal financial donations to settlements that are illegal under international law when built on Palestinian land. So this is going to be a lightning rod. This is going to be really interesting to watch when he fields questions on Capitol Hill. And I think, Vlad, which also actually gets to one of the points Anne-Marie brought up about that press conference yesterday, something that might come up again today is President Trump's inability, or perhaps maybe he was a little flustered by the question, but he did not condemn anti-Semitism, the perception of xenophobia within the administration that the Israeli media asked President Trump about. That question President Trump didn't directly answer. It's an easy answer. We unequivocally condemn it, and there's no place for it in the White House. He couldn't answer that question that way and instead talked about his own electoral victories. And I have a feeling there are some senators who are going to remember that when they are questioning this nominee today. I think it's going to be very politically charged.
Yeah, he certainly had sort of a long, rambling answer, which started with his electoral results, ended with there's going to be a lot of love, and a lot of people
took him a long time
to
get there.
And it was up to Prime Minister Netanyahu to essentially soften his rough edges a bit by
Precisely.
saying it, underscoring the personal connection that he has with the president.
Margaret, as you mentioned earlier, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will meet at the G20 summit in Germany. What's the significance of their meeting?
That meeting just happened. What we are told is this is, supposed to discuss future attempts to work together in this sort of reset of relations with Russia. The two men, this is the first meeting. It was Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State, but of course he has deep ties to Russia as a businessman with the oil industry there. Mr. Tillerson, when he went to the cameras, made a very brief statement that you heard, didn't reveal a lot. Cameras were only allowed in for that quick photo spray at the top, as usual, but didn't really pick up much of the read in the room. Right now, the State Department is really not keen to share a lot of information about this because this is so politically charged right now in terms of the U.S. Relations with Russia, these allegations totally separate from the diplomacy in regard to connections between those on the Trump campaign, aides to the now president, and their past contact with Russian intelligence or Russian officials. So as a diplomat, Rex Tillerson's really got to smooth out a lot of rough edges here, and I have a feeling that's why he's really being careful with his words right now. And when he sits down with Sergei Lavrov, it's going to be about shared interests. Also interesting, though, is that for the very first time since Russia annexed Crimea out of Ukraine, that's the territory they took from Ukraine, we have the president's chief military advisor, General Dunford, meeting with his Russian counterpart. That also happening today. So there's clearly some diplomacy at work behind the scenes. Let's see where it leads us.
All right, Margaret Brennan at the White House for us. Margaret, we thank you.